Good evening to you all, and thank you for joining us here on Rwanda Television News tonight. We do hope you had yourselves a productive Thursday. Now here's a sneak peek of our edition. Members of Parliament have called on the National Agricultural Export Development Board to urgently address challenges affecting agricultural produce, cold storage facilities, as well as the poor performance of the fiber processing factory handling silk from sericulture and cotton production. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Ambassador Olivier Nduhungirehe, who is in Davos, Switzerland for the annual World Economic Forum, took part in a discussion focusing on the future of the African continent titled Africa in a New World. We are glad to have your company tonight, coming to you straight from the heart of Africa, Kigali, and I bring you tonight's edition is Martina Abera. Now, let us start off by informing you that members of Parliament have called on the National Agricultural Export Development Board to urgently address challenges affecting agricultural produce, cold storage facilities, as well as the poor performance of the fiber processing factory handling silk from sericulture and cotton production. The concerns were raised during a session of the Parliamentary Committee on Governance Affairs and Gender Equality of the Chamber of Deputies as it met with officials from the Ministry of Agriculture and Animal Resources and NAEB. The committee questioned the institutions on issues highlighted in the Office of the Ombudsman's report, particularly those related to inefficiencies and weak performance in activities under the mandate. Among key issues raised were persistent operational problems in cold storage facilities used to preserve agricultural produce. Entrepreneurs who rely on these facilities reported that the challenges, including frequent power supply disruptions, have resulted in significant financial losses. Shungo Haranda, the managing director of Bloom Hills Rwanda, a company engaged in flour production and export, stated that electricity-related challenges affecting the cold storage facilities have constrained the expansion of his business despite strong demand in international markets.
Mostly weekend and new week start, like Sunday night to Monday morning. That's the time of often power cuts happens. And also sometimes once the power cut continues more than one day, our flowers start feeling the temperature raise and they start blooming. We really believe that this operation is more about manufacturing, like factory. The character of this business and operation and the usage of power is really factory. Yeah. But unfortunately, our category is yet in a non-industrial tariff. I believe it's very obvious to everyone that our consumption of power is more than an industrial tariff category already, and usage or character of our power usage is also very similar to factory. Yeah. By considering all those elements, we wish to have a reasonable decision and put in the right category. There are two aspects. First is more quantity of job, means more number of workers can come and work. Since we can boost our investment, means we can increase more greenhouses, production acreage. It will directly impact the number of job creation and also wages for everyone.
In response to the concerns, Chief Executive Officer of the National Agricultural Export Development Board, Claude Bizimana, informed the committee that corrective measures are being implemented to improve the performance of the cold storage facilities. Regarding the fiber processing factory, he explained that NAEB is in the process of identifying a new private investor following the departure of the previous operator. Additional concerns raised by members of parliament include funds that were mistakenly paid twice to farmers who were relocated from tea growing areas in Nyaruguru district, which have not yet been fully recovered. The committee also questioned the status of agricultural vehicles valued at more than 175 million Rwandan francs that were procured through a framework contract but are currently not operational. The Minister of Foreign Affairs and International Cooperation, Ambassador Olivier Nduhungirehe, who is in Davos, Switzerland for the annual World Economic Forum, took part in a discussion focusing on the future of the African continent titled Africa in a New World. During this discussion, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, Ambassador Olivier Nduhungirehe, highly praised the strong cooperation that characterizes relations between Europe and African countries, particularly in the areas of economic development and investment. He made these remarks in Davos, Switzerland during the annual World Economic Forum, where he participated in a panel discussion on the future of the African continent. Ambassador Nduhungirehe stated that Rwanda went through very difficult times during the 1994 genocide against the Tutsi, but managed to overcome those challenges, and that Europe played a role in that recovery journey. Regarding Africa-Europe cooperation, Ambassador Nduhungirehe said that this partnership must change and should no longer remain one-sided as it was in the past when Africa was viewed only as a recipient of aid. Instead, he emphasized that cooperation should be based on trade and mutual benefit for both African and European countries. He also referred to the agreement establishing the African Continental Free Trade Area, noting that it is one of the key pillars for boosting trade within Africa. This will enable people on the continent to strengthen cooperation and make it easier for Africa to trade with other continents, including Europe.
This partnership, we have, I will say, historical links with some of the countries in Europe. We still have economic partnership, investment, but we want to do more. Mm-hmm. We want, as African countries, 60 or 65 years after the independences of our continent, countries, to transition from development aid to indeed experience a terrible genocide in 1994 against the Tutsi, during which 1 million people out of a population of 7.5 million were killed. And some of the roots of this genocide actually can be brought back to the colonial era, because the distinction, ethnic distinction, were made by colonial powers. But now we have embarked on a path of unity and reconciliation, to live together, we have done transitional justice. Now I think things are changing. We are a big continent of 1.4 billion people, a young continent.
And it will be more. The predictions are even...
Yes, 2.5 million, I think in coming years will be the continent with the most youth in the world. Africa, so far, is a developing continent, but what we have achieved in the past years shows that we are in a momentum for integration. We have signed in 2018 in Kigali, in Rwanda, an African Continental Free Trade Area, so that we can boost, promote intra-Africa trade, so that you can be an economic bloc. It's feasible because we, as I said, 1.4 billion people, we have natural resources, mineral resources, a young population. What we need is, of course, is partnerships, is financing, is knowledge transfer, so that we have an educated people with the skills of tomorrow. We are talking about AI, about about new technologies. So with that population, I think it's feasible. But of course, there are challenges. We need first ourselves as Africans to understand that we have an opportunity to come together to build a strong political and economic bloc that can deal on equal footing with the world powers that we see now, EU, US, China, and others.
Rwanda is set to launch a $50 million project aimed at supporting African institutions in adopting artificial intelligence in the healthcare sector. The announcement was made during the World Economic Forum, currently taking place in Davos, Switzerland, where Rwanda was highlighted as one of the countries that have made significant strides in prioritizing the use of AI technology.
At Northcan, a well-known hub for technological innovation, Jean Damascene Bigirimana, Chief Executive Officer of Health Edu, explained that they are using artificial intelligence to help patients access basic medical guidance without the need to queue at health facilities. Patients are only referred to health centers once their condition reaches a level that requires direct medical attention. The AI solution is currently being piloted in Musanze and Burera districts in collaboration with community health workers.
Using artificial intelligence is one of the tools that can really help helping people to access the services that they were not able to access. So what we did is with YAMC, there is a platform called IRI platform, and this IRI platform has been trained for rehabilitation services. So it means that the rehabilitation profession trained it, like if a patient asks this, respond this. If a patient asks this, respond this. If a patient has this particular inquiry, respond like this. So in that way, we have trained it in a way that it can provide basic rehabilitation services to the people in need. So what we are doing is a pilot study being done in Musanze and Burera, and currently we have enrolled very few people, but we are seeing good results. We are seeing really good results. People are appreciating that artificial intelligence can really support them. And we have very little barriers because in those particular areas, even if we can think that it's a rural area, but people have internet. So people are using Airtel, others are using MTN, and they're using smartphones to get the services. So we have a team that is supporting them 24/7, allowing them, whoever has a problem, they can support. So I think this is a good innovation, the use of artificial intelligence to provide services, either rehabilitation services. This can be done to access basic medical care. People can access services using artificial intelligence in health sectors. I think the Minister of Health is working very hard on that one, and we are actually seeing more in the coming days.
Speaking on the same topic, Dr. Augustine Sendegeya, the Chief Medical Officer at the King Pius Hospital, said that the use of artificial intelligence in healthcare significantly improves efficiency and speeds up service delivery.
Robotic surgery, it doesn't mean that the patient is operated by a machine, but the robot is used by a professional. So the number one, it makes the procedure very quick. And number two, it helps us to get access to difficult areas or surgical field that is very difficult to get when you do open surgery. So I think the technology is evolving, and robotic surgery is not done yet in Rwanda, but I'm sure in the near future we'll start using them.
At the World Economic Forum in Davos, the Gates Foundation and OpenAI announced the launch of a $50 million initiative equivalent to over 72 billion Rwandan francs designed to support African organizations in deploying AI solutions in healthcare. The project will begin in Rwanda. Bill Gates noted that artificial intelligence has the potential to help the world recover and realign, especially at a time when international aid funding is declining.
You know, the 50 million commitment here is just the beginning. You know, I believe that people in Africa should have this health advisor without having to pay anything for it. It should just be a basic capability available to them. And then as you go into the health system, instead of filling out paperwork and redescribing everything, you know, the AI that you've been talking to is summarizing that. And so it's kind of a digital EHR, getting rid of the paperwork together with all the intelligence.
The Minister of ICT and Innovation, Paula Ingabire, emphasized that Rwanda is making strong investments in artificial intelligence across various sectors, including healthcare. She cited the AI Scaling Hub, launched last year, which aims to integrate and harmonize health data nationwide.
Last year in April, we were able to launch the AI Scaling Hub together with the Gates Foundation. And what the Scaling Hub is looking to do, because I think many countries are struggling with this, is that many countries have done pilots, but what happens, how do you move away from a pilot? Because a pilot in itself is difficult to even say, this is the value, this is the societal impact that we've been able to get, and this is how we're able to measure it. And so what we've done through the Gates Foundation is to be able to launch this AI Scaling Hub, where we're picking a handful of use cases that we'll be able to deploy and scale. It does two things. One is that it shows the proof for delivery. Two, you're able to immediately create impact through low-hanging opportunities, as opposed to waiting for a big pocket of money that will come for you to sort of fix all the issues and problems that you already have. But what it's also helping is that not every solution has to come from government. So how do we mobilize the industry, the startups that have these ideas and just need a place to test and try some of these solutions, and government becomes a test bed, or the country becomes a test bed for scaling this. And so I think finding those kind of win-win partnerships is what has made it possible. And obviously, as you go along, as you show progress, as you show impact, you're able to mobilize more partnerships and funding.
The minister thanked the Gates Foundation and OpenAI for selecting Rwanda as the starting point of the initiative, noting that the country has demonstrated strong leadership in advancing emerging technologies. Rwanda is among the few countries globally to host an institution dedicated to AI and innovation, the Rwanda Center for the Fourth Industrial Revolution, and is also one of the few nations with established AI governance frameworks and a law on personal data protection and privacy.
The Ministry of Education of Rwanda has announced that starting in September 2026, it will introduce a new learning program aimed at reintegrating students who dropped out of school, mainly at primary level. The Minister of State for Education, Irere Claudette, says the program is expected to bring back over 100,000 out-of-school children.
What the sector is doing, the education sector is doing, is because the identification was already done, is to still go back door to door, ensuring that these children that were identified are brought back in class. One of the things that we saw is that there is a significant number of these students that are over age. So I'll give you an example. You dropped out of school when you were in P2, primary 2. Today you are, 15 years old. If we identify, through the identification, we still count you as a dropout, right? Because you dropped out of P2. But in reality, a 15-year-old coming back in primary 2, you understand that it's going to be a bit challenging, right? And so this has forced us to look at what we call alternative learning pathways. So basically coming up with a program that is accelerated, that allows these overage students to catch up on some of these years, some of these gaps that they haven't been able to be in school for, and then they can be assessed in a different way. And so, but had it not been for this program, this project, I don't think we would have come up with that alternative learning pathway. We will start it hopefully in September. Because we realize that there's a significant number of students that are not ready. They want to come back, but because of the age, they cannot come back. And this project specifically looks at the under 16 years old, right? And so if you're under 16 years old and you're supposed to go back in primary, if it's P1 that you have to go back to, then it becomes a challenge. So that's one of the things that we're also working on, is to ensure that if you're overage, then you have a program to go to. But if you're, still in the age category where you feel comfortable to go back to school, then you're re-enrolled back in school. And so I would say identification continues, bringing these students, with the support of the local government, continues, and the friends of the families, that also continues, but also coming up with that program, alternative learning pathway, that allows overage students to be able to catch up on their studies.
The ministry has also put in some place measures to support teachers in handling and monitoring the large number of those returning to school.
Issues of overcrowding have always been there, and in the best way possible, we try and work with schools and local government to build more classrooms where we can and when the budget allows it. Today, since the COVID time, when we reopened schools, we've been able to add about almost 3,000 classrooms, and that's on average 500 to 600 classrooms each year that are built across the country. But that alone does not, cater for the size of the students that we can do. And so there are different things that are being done. Where possible, lower primary has been guided to study in shifts, right? So that means that if students were 70, right? If it's in shift, that means morning shift is 35, afternoon shift is 35. But that's only for lower primary, right? Where possible, when funds are available, we've been able to build more classrooms. And like I said, on average each year we add about 500 to 600 classrooms. And we continue. There's never a time where we're not going to do that. And then 3 is to work with schools and teachers, of course, to be able to manage these numbers. You understand that if students are many, it's not going to be easy for the teacher to be able to teach all of them, but then programs such as remedial programs are there to ensure that those that were not able to follow in class are given a little bit of extra time to ensure that they catch up. And then, wherever possible, other organizations come in to fill in the gaps that probably teachers have, but also support, and especially for students with disabilities, where, facilities are provided wherever possible, not everywhere. But to also encourage teachers to continue and support these other students as well.
The initiative is being implemented under the Zero Out of School Children Umwana Wise Yije project through a partnership between the government of Rwanda and Qatar via the Education Above All Foundation. The project targets more than 180,000 children over 5 years, including 24,000 children with disabilities. So far, over 72,000 students have already returned to school. As Rwanda targets the creation of at least 250,000 jobs annually, focusing on opportunities for youth and women, educators and employers alike say producing job-ready graduates requires closer collaboration and more than academic qualifications. We have more coming from William Evans Mutawazi.
With universities graduating thousands every year, attention is now shifting from how many degrees are being awarded to how prepared graduates are for work.
Employers are teaching through us. So we are a medium of learning, not the source of knowledge. Why do we choose that path? So at Kepler College, we choose that path because we know we are producing for employers. Then we need to know what do they want. Then they tell us what they want. We use our expertise in teaching, in facilitating. We produce people that directly matches with what employers want.
Rwanda's education system continues to expand, but employers say many graduates still struggle to transition into the workplace.
I think from the experiences, it's not one thing. It's a combination of many things that we need to work on, whether the entrepreneurs, the private sector, or the universities. It's a combination of things. One is the communication skills. Is someone able to communicate at work? Second, is someone willing or has the potential and the capabilities to work in a team?
Human resource experts urge that the challenge is less about technical knowledge and more about practical skills, work ethics, and professional attitudes.
Generally, the employers want to hire the attitude. The schools, the universities need to shape the graduate to fit within a society and work environment, not only producing degrees, because the employer never needs papers. Yes, the paper, the degree need to be there as a start, but they always need someone or capability of adding value within a company, within organization.
Universities acknowledge the concern, saying producing job-ready graduates must go beyond classroom learning.
Universities in Rwanda have a clear core mission to deliver academic programs that are closely aligned with the demands of the job market. Programs are regularly reviewed every 3 years. This is actually the common practice across universities to ensure they remain responsive to current national, regional, and global labor market needs.
When students come to start here at Kepler, we have what we call Kepler Success Week, which is a week students get to learn what we call life skills. Not mathematics, not English, but life skills. How do you live in groups? How do you work with others? Hygiene, mental health, reproductive health. But at the end of that week, we do what we call employer visit, where we take new students to visit companies. Remember, they are yet to start classes, but they want to learn what do companies want. Then whenever they are learning, they bring back their memories to something they learned from those employers.
Government reforms are increasingly emphasizing TVET, industrial placements, and employer-driven training. Students who benefited from internships said that work exposure can make the difference.
I would say that industrial attachment or internships really helps fresh graduates or anyone who wants a job for those who doesn't have an experience to first try their best in internship so they can be able to fit in the workplace. So I would say that that is the one that helped me to get a job.
With Rwanda aiming to create 250,000 jobs annually, aligning education with the labor market needs, changing students' attitudes towards work experience may determine how many graduates successfully enter employment. William Evans, RwandaTV News.
On that note, we've come to the end of tonight's bulletin. On behalf of the news production team is the technical team. Thank you for sticking with us on RTV News. My name is Martina Abera. Until next time, stay safe and have a good night.